Jason never expected a mailbox to become the center of a neighborhood war. Yet, day after day, that's exactly what it was turning into. His mailbox stood at the edge of his driveway, a simple black metal box on a wooden post. Nothing fancy, but solid enough to hold his mail and packages. But lately, it seemed like it was under siege. It began with small dents, barely noticeable. Then, more obvious damage appeared, scratches and scrapes that couldn't be blamed on careless drivers or weather. Jason first noticed it after a tense HOA meeting where Karen, the HOA president, singled him out for non-compliance with some obscure community rule. The day after, his mailbox was smashed off its post, lying crumpled on the grass. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Neighbors whispered that Karen and her clique were behind the attacks, trying to intimidate him. Jason didn't want trouble, but the constant harassment wore on him. He fixed the mailbox each time, hoping it would end. But it never did. One morning, Jason found the mailbox covered in thick, red paint, a glaring message of defiance or warning. It was clear. The HOA Bullies had declared open war. Jason's wife, Emily, was worried. "This isn't just about a mailbox anymore. They're targeting us," she said, her voice trembling. Jason nodded. "I'm going to fight back. I'm not letting them push me around." That night, Jason sat on the porch, staring at the ruined mailbox under the dim streetlight. A shadow moved near the edge of his property. Heart racing, Jason grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The figure froze and disappeared into the darkness before he could get a clear look. The next day, Jason decided to take action. He researched durable materials and security designs. If the bullies wanted to play rough, he'd build a mailbox that was unbreakable, one they couldn't dent, smash, or dodge. But as he began gathering supplies, strange things started happening. Tools went missing from his garage. His gate was found open when he swore he locked it. The harassment was escalating. Jason realized this wasn't just petty vandalism, it was a calculated attack, and he was the target. The question was, how far would the HOA Bullies go? Jason steeled. Himself. Whatever it took, he'd protect his home, his mailbox, and his peace of mind. The war was just beginning. Jason's world had shifted. What started as simple mailbox vandalism was now a shadow war unfolding right on his front lawn. Determined to stop the attacks, Jason installed security cameras around the mailbox with motion-activated lights that flooded the area with harsh white beams whenever something moved. He hoped these measures would deter the bullies, but deep down, a knot tightened in his stomach. Someone didn't want him to feel safe. The next morning, Jason rushed to check the footage. At first, the screen showed nothing but empty darkness and the soft glow of the street lamp. Then, at 2:14 a.m., a figure appeared, hunched and silent, dressed all in black. The intruder moved carefully toward the mailbox. Jason's heart pounded. The figure pulled out a crowbar and raised it, aiming for the mailbox. But just before the first blow landed, the motion lights blazed on, illuminating the attacker in harsh light. The figure froze, then bolted. Jason leaned forward, straining to see the face, but it was hidden beneath a hood. Moments later, the camera feed flickered and went dead. Jason's blood ran cold. Someone had disabled the camera. It was no coincidence. The HOA Bullies weren't just vandalizing his mailbox. They were watching, planning, and adapting. Jason's wife, Emily, noticed the growing tension. "Maybe you should talk to Karen. Try to make peace," she suggested nervously. Jason shook his head. "She's the one behind this. Talking won't stop her." That afternoon, Jason went to the HOA meeting, hoping to confront Karen directly. As he entered the room, the usual murmurs hushed. Karen sat at the head of the table, her eyes cold and sharp. Jason cleared his throat. "Enough with the games, Karen. Who's behind this? The mailbox? The threats? End it." Karen smiled thinly. "You're making enemies, Jason. Maybe you don't belong here." Jason's jaw tightened. On his way home, his car tires hit something hard. He stopped and found a large rock embedded with a note. "Last warning. Stop or else." Fear mingled with anger. That night, Jason barely slept. He spent hours drafting plans for a mailbox that could withstand anything, built from reinforced steel, anchored deep into the ground, and designed to survive even the most aggressive attacks. But, as he worked on his project in the garage, a sudden crash made him jump. Rushing outside, Jason found the gate to his backyard swinging open. No sign of the intruder. Someone was trying to break in. Jason called the police. The officers took reports, but warned, "Without evidence, it's hard to make a case." Jason understood. The HOA Bullies were experts at intimidation, hiding behind layers of rules and deniability, but Jason refused to back down. He realized that this fight wasn't just about a mailbox. It was about standing his ground against those who abused power to control others, and he was ready to win. The new mailbox was almost finished. A steel fortress Jason had built himself. Thick metal plates, reinforced hinges, and a heavy-duty locking mechanism ensured it could withstand everything Karen and her cronies might throw at it. But as Jason tightened the last bolt, a sense of unease crept over him. The harassment wasn't just about the mailbox anymore. It was personal. That night, he set up new cameras, this time with backup batteries and hidden from obvious sight. He also installed a loud alarm on the mailbox post, a siren that would shatter the night if anyone dared touch it. Then came the challenge installation. The next morning, Jason prepared to carry the heavy mailbox down the driveway. Just then, a sleek black SUV rolled slowly past his house. Karen was inside, her gaze fixed on Jason with a cold smile. She stopped the car, rolling down the window. "You really think a mailbox can protect you? You're just making this worse." Jason met her stare. "I'm protecting what's mine." Karen sneered and drove away. Later that day, Jason noticed a cluster of HOA board members standing across the street, whispering and watching him like vultures. He could almost feel their eyes piercing through his skin. That evening, as he finished securing the mailbox, his phone buzzed with an anonymous text. "You're playing a dangerous game. Back off before it gets ugly." Jason's fingers trembled for a moment, then he typed back, "Bring it on." The following nights were restless. Strange noises echoed near his property. Tires screeched in the distance. Shadows darted just beyond the floodlights. One night, the alarm on the mailbox blared loud and piercing. Jason grabbed his flashlight and rushed outside. There, he found the mailbox, battered but standing firm. The paint had been peeled off, and the post had deep scratches, but it hadn't budged. No sign of the attacker. Jason felt a flicker of victory, but it was short-lived. The next morning, his neighbor, Mr. Thompson, knocked on his door. "You should be careful," he warned quietly. "Karen's not just an HOA president. She's got connections." "I've seen what she can do," Jason frowned. "What do you mean?" Mr. Thompson glanced around nervously. "Let's just say, some people in this neighborhood are willing to go to extreme lengths to protect their turf." Jason's mind raced. This was bigger than he'd imagined. He was caught in a web of power, secrets, and control, and the stakes were rising fast. He realized that to protect his home, he'd need more than a strong mailbox. He'd need allies, evidence, and the guts to face Karen head-on. But Karen wasn't just going to back down. She was ready to fight dirty. Jason prepared for the next move. The battle lines were drawn. Jason felt the weight of every glance, every whisper as neighbors started to keep their distance. The HOA was no longer just an organization. It had become a force working against him, and Karen was its ruthless commander. He spent days analyzing the footage from his new security cameras, hoping to catch the culprits. But every time something happened, The cameras mysteriously glitched or the footage was corrupted. Frustration gnawed at him. Then one evening, while reviewing the latest recordings, he spotted something chilling. A figure he recognized, Karen's cousin, Greg, lurking near the mailbox. Greg moved with deliberate caution, looking around as if waiting for a signal. Jason's heart pounded. He'd found the link. He decided to confront Karen directly, but he knew it had to be carefully planned. At the next HOA meeting, Jason walked in with a new resolve. As Karen began her usual tirade, Jason interrupted. "We know it's not just coincidence anymore. Greg's been seen tampering with my mailbox. This harassment has to stop." Karen's face turned red, her smile disappearing. "You have no proof," she spat. "Just rumors and paranoia." Jason pulled out a tablet and showed a short video clip of Greg skulking near the mailbox in the dead of night. Murmurs spread across the room. Karen's composure cracked for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "This is a personal attack," she said coldly. "I demand this behavior be investigated." Jason nodded. "Investigate all you want. I'm ready for the truth." The room buzzed with tension. Later that night, Jason's phone buzzed again. A new anonymous message appeared. "You've crossed the line. Be careful what you wish for." Jason's instincts screamed danger. He double-checked his home's locks and set extra lights around the property. But then the worst happened. One morning, Jason discovered his front gate chained shut. Attached was a note. "You don't own this road. Turn back before it's too late." Jason's mind raced. The gate blocked the only private road leading to his house and the mailbox. If he couldn't get through, how could he receive mail, visitors, or even leave? His grandfather, a tough old man who had built much of the land, himself came over to see the scene. He shook his head, his eyes filled with quiet fury. "This isn't just harassment anymore. This is war!" Jason realized the fight had escalated beyond his control. Karen and the HOA weren't playing fair. They were trying to trap him in, cut him off, and break his spirit. But Jason wasn't done yet. He was ready to push back harder than ever. The question now was, how far would Karen go to keep control, and how far was Jason willing to go to reclaim what was rightfully his? Jason stood before the chained gate, frustration boiling inside him. The only road leading to his property was blocked. A bold move from Karen and her HOA faction. It was no longer about petty mailbox vandalism. This was a calculated attempt to isolate him completely. His grandfather, Hank, watched silently, the lines on his weathered face deepening. "This is your land, right?" Hank asked, voice steady but firm. Jason nodded. "It's all ours, but Karen and her crew want to shut me out." Hank's eyes narrowed. "Back in my day, we didn't take kindly to bullies." Without hesitation, Hank pulled out his phone and dialed a number Jason didn't recognize. "I'm calling the tow company," Hank said. "Get that SUV off my grandson's road." Jason's jaw dropped. "You can do that?" Hank grinned. "I own the land where that gate and road sit. I can have any vehicle blocking access to it removed. Karen and her SUV are trespassing." Within the hour, a tow truck rumbled down the narrow road to the locked gate. Jason, Hank, and a few neighbors gathered, watching the drama unfold. Karen's black SUV sat arrogantly chained to the gate, a symbol of defiance. The tow driver hooked the SUV and started hauling it away. Karen appeared furious, stomping toward the scene. "This is illegal! You can't just tow my car!" she screamed. Hank faced her calmly. "I own this road. You had no right to block it." Jason felt a surge of relief mixed with vindication. The tide was turning, but Karen's fury only grew. She pulled out her phone and called the police. When officers arrived, Hank presented his land deeds and the documentation proving his ownership of the road. After reviewing the papers, the police confirmed Karen's vehicle was trespassing. She was ordered to pay the towing fees and warned not to block the road again. The HOA president's smug confidence cracked in that moment. Jason watched Karen retreat, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. But the victory felt bittersweet. He knew this wasn't the end. The battle was far from over. That night, Jason and Hank sat on the porch, the heavy silence broken only by the chirping of crickets. "You did good today," Jason said. Hank nodded. "Sometimes you've got to stand your ground no matter what. Karen and her gang thought they could push you around. Now they know better." Jason glanced at his mailbox, still battered but unbowed. "We'll rebuild this better than ever," Hank smiled. "And I'll be here if they try anything else." But as they talked, a flicker of movement caught Jason's eye. Across the street, behind a darkened window, someone was watching. The HOA fight had turned personal, and the watchers were waiting for their next move. Jason tightened his grip on the porch rail. The war was escalating, and he had to be ready. The night after Karen's SUV was towed, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every creak of the old house, every distant car passing by, set his nerves on edge. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to plan his next move. The next morning, as he stepped outside, Jason found a plain envelope tucked under his mailbox. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single typed note. "You're not alone in this fight. Meet me at the old barn behind Miller's farm tonight. Come alone." Jason's mind raced. Who could it be? An HOA member having second thoughts? A neighbor secretly on his side? Or someone with their own agenda? Curiosity and caution battled inside him, but Jason knew he needed allies. If Karen's group was as powerful as they seemed, he couldn't fight this war alone. That evening, as twilight draped the landscape in deep blue shadows, Jason slipped out quietly. The old barn stood isolated and creaking softly in the wind. He approached slowly, senses alert. Inside, a silhouette stepped forward. "I'm Sarah," she whispered. "I used to be on the HOA board. I left because I couldn't stomach Karen's tactics." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Why come to me?" Sarah hesitated. "Because I know things. Documents, emails, proof of illegal actions by Karen and some board members. They've been manipulating property lines, threatening homeowners, even falsifying records." Jason's heart pounded. This was the breakthrough he needed. Sarah continued, "If we expose them, it'll change everything, but you have to be careful. Karen has eyes everywhere." Jason nodded, a new fire igniting inside him. "Let's start gathering evidence," he said. "If we can bring this to the county, they won't be able to ignore it." Over the next few days, Jason and Sarah met in secret, poring over files and recordings. They discovered shady deals, forged signatures, and threats made against homeowners who spoke up. Each new piece of evidence strengthened Jason's case, but it also made the danger grow. One evening, as Jason returned home from a secret meeting, with Sarah, he found the mailbox covered in red paint, an angry message scrawled across it, "Stop digging." Jason wiped his hands clean and smiled grimly. "They're scared," he muttered. But then the sound of footsteps behind him made him freeze. Turning quickly, he saw Greg, Karen's cousin, looming in the shadows. Greg's voice was low and threatening. "This isn't over, Jason. Back off before things get ugly." Jason stood his ground. "You want to fight? Bring it." Greg vanished into the night, leaving Jason alone with his racing heart. The war had entered a new phase, one where evidence was power and fear was a weapon. But Jason knew that with Sarah's help and the truth on his side, he might just turn the tide. The only question was whether Karen would stop at nothing to keep control, and how far Jason was willing to go to win. The tension in the neighborhood was electric. Jason's alliance with Sarah had given him hope, but the stakes had never been higher. Karen's retaliations had become more aggressive, her threats more blatant. But now, armed with evidence, Jason knew it was time for a bold move. Sarah proposed a plan. "We need to catch Karen and her board in the act. If we can record them breaking the law, we'll have indisputable proof to bring to the authorities." Jason nodded, adrenaline surging. "What do we do?" "We set a trap." Over the next few days, they carefully laid the groundwork. Jason pretended to be compliant with HOA rules, attending meetings, but secretly coordinated with Sarah and a trusted neighbor who had a hidden camera installed in the meeting room. The next HOA meeting arrived, tension thick in the air. Karen sat at the head of the table, radiating control, her eyes occasionally flicking toward Jason, filled with contempt. Minutes in, the board began discussing plans to illegally seize Jason's property by manipulating zoning laws. The conversation was secretive, with mentions of forged signatures and falsified documents. Sarah, hidden behind a laptop, silently recorded every word. Suddenly, the meeting's door creaked open. Karen's cousin Greg stormed in, furious. "They're onto us! The mailbox sabotage, the gate, the cameras. It's all connected." Karen's face paled for a second, but she quickly masked it. "We'll deal with them. No one crosses the HOA." Jason sat quietly, heart pounding, as the conversation turned darker. Plans of harassment, legal pressure, and even sabotage were openly discussed and recorded. But then the unexpected happened. Suddenly, the back door slammed open, and in walked a man in a sharp suit, an attorney from the county, accompanied by 2 police officers. The room froze. The attorney cleared his throat. "We've been reviewing complaints about this HOA. This meeting is officially being recorded and all evidence will be submitted to the district attorney." Karen's confident mask shattered. She stood abruptly, stammering. This is a violation. You can't," the officer interrupted. "You're under investigation for fraud, harassment, and illegal property seizure." Chaos erupted. Karen shouted orders for Greg to disable the cameras, but it was too late. The hidden footage had been transmitted securely. Jason felt a surge of triumph, but kept his face calm. As Karen and her allies were escorted out, she glared at Jason with pure hatred. But then came the twist. Just as the officers led Karen away, the attorney pulled Jason aside. "Mr. Mills," he said quietly, "there's something you need to know." Jason's heart skipped. Karen wasn't acting alone. There was a bigger force behind this, a powerful real estate developer eyeing the neighborhood, using the HOA as a front to force homeowners out. The battle was far from over. Jason realized the fight for his property was just the beginning of a much larger war. Jason stood outside the courthouse, the weight of everything finally settling on his shoulders. Karen and the HOA board were officially under investigation, thanks to the damning evidence Sarah and Jason had helped uncover. The tension that had gripped the neighborhood for months began to ease, but Jason knew the real battle was only just beginning. The attorney's warning about the developer echoed in his mind. This was bigger than petty HOA politics. It was a land grab masked by corruption. A week later, Jason and Sarah met again at the old barn. The attorney had arranged a meeting with a county official who was now deeply involved. The official confirmed their worst fears. The developer had secretly bought several HOA board members and was planning to annex large parts of the community, including Jason's ranch. Jason clenched his fists. "We have to stop this." Sarah nodded. "And we have the proof." They launched a campaign to inform the neighborhood. Flyers, emails, and town hall meetings exposed the developer's plan. Neighbors who had been silent now stood with Jason, angered by the betrayal. But the developer wasn't backing down. Threats escalated. Trucks showed up, surveying the land, intimidating residents. Then came the night of the sabotage. Jason's barn, the place where he and Sarah had planned their fight, was set on fire. Jason rushed outside, heart pounding as flames swallowed the wooden structure. Neighbors called the fire department, and Hank arrived with a heavy-duty hose, battling the blaze. Despite the damage, the fire failed to destroy the digital evidence stored off-site. The community rallied, more united than ever. Then, in a stunning turn, The county official announced a formal injunction against the developer's plans, based largely on Jason's evidence and the growing outcry. The developer's scheme unraveled publicly. Karen and her cronies, once puppets of the developer, faced serious legal consequences. Some quietly disappeared from the neighborhood, others were forced to pay restitution. Jason finally reclaimed peace on his land. As he sat on the porch with his grandfather, the repaired mailbox gleaming in the sun, Jason smiled. "Didn't think it would end like this," he said. Hank chuckled. "Sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest roar." Jason's phone buzzed. A new message from Sarah. "The fight wasn't just for us. It's for everyone who ever felt powerless." Jason looked out over his ranch, the lake shimmering, the gate standing open, and the road clear. He knew the scars of the battle would remain, but so would the victory, and no HOA bully or greedy developer would ever trap him again.